Hi, I'm Chris from Bicycle at the University of Kent. Today we're going to show you how to do an M check to make sure all the basic parts of your bike are in good working order in preparation for the Pilgrims Hospice ride on the 5th of May. So an M check is really simple. We start at the front of the bike and we make an M shape going up, down, up and to the back of the bike, and that will make sure all the major parts of your bike are working once we've finished our adjustments. So the first part we're going to talk about is the front axle and specifically how to do a quick release up correctly. If you've arrived to the ride in your car, chances are your front wheel is taken off the bike, so we need to make sure it's attached properly. Start by slotting the wheel into the dropout, making sure it's straight. Then you can screw up the quick release just until there's a little bit of resistance in the axle when it's parallel to the wheel hub. Then all you need to do is close the lever with the palm of your hand and the wheel will be nice and solid. So next we're going to talk about how to set up the front brakes properly. This will be exactly the same for the rear brake as well. First of all, make sure your brake pads have enough life left in them. If the notches have worn down, then you need to make sure they're replaced before you ride. Secondly, make sure the lever doesn't have excess travel. You can adjust this using a barrel adjuster on the top here. Now notice we're talking about the most common style of caliper brakes. If you have a disc brake or a V-brake, there will still be a barrel adjuster, just in a different position, mostly on the lever. You can turn the barrel adjuster anti-clockwise to tighten the brake, and don't forget to tighten up the lock ring when you've finished. The most common problem is the brake rubbing against the wheel as it spins. If you have this problem on a caliper brake, you can adjust it with this nut here. Experiment with which way to turn to make sure the brake is centered and the wheel doesn't rub. Next we're going to check that the bars and the stem are properly tightened. To check that the handlebars are properly attached, all you need to do is put some weight and make sure they don't move. If they do, you need to tighten these 4 bolts up evenly, making sure there's the same gap at the top and the bottom of the stem clamp. To make sure the stem is tightened correctly, all you need to do is put the front wheel between your legs and try and turn the handlebars from side to side. Again, if there's any movement, tighten these 2 bolts either side of the stem. Do not tighten this bolt at the top, as you might risk damaging your headset. Next we're going to talk about your cranks and the bottom bracket. So we may need to make sure that the bearings spin freely and that there's no play. First of all, we can just spin the pedals backwards, listen for any noise or feel for some grinding, and you need to take the cranks, one in each hand, and try and move them backwards and forwards from side to side of the bike. If there's any movement or any knocking, we recommend taking it to your local bike shop, as there are too many different types to discuss in this video. Next we're going to talk about the seat post and the seat, making sure they're properly tightened. The seat post is held by a clamp around here. If it's loose, you just need to tighten this bolt here. Like everything on a bicycle, it tightens into soft aluminium, so it doesn't need to be too tight to hold the seat in place. The seat itself is held by either a single bolt in this bike or sometimes by 2 bolts either side if you have a more expensive seat post. You need to make sure that the seat is level and tighten up both bolts or the single bolt appropriately. Next we're going to check the tyres. You need to make sure that they're at the correct pressure and that there's no damage to the sidewalls and that there is enough tread to complete the ride. Most tyres will have the correct pressure range printed on the side wall of the tyre, and you can aim for roughly the middle of this pressure range if you have a gauge on your pump. If you don't have a gauge, a good rule of thumb is to give the tyres a squeeze, and if there's any movement then you need to pump them up. Lastly, we're going to check the gears and the rear hub. To make sure the gears are indexing properly, if you have the benefit of a work stand, you can pop it up, pedal forwards and work through the gears, making sure that each shift is nice and clean and that the chain doesn't drop off, particularly the biggest cog. Work your way down. If you're not happy with the indexing, take it to a local bike shop, as they will be experienced at indexing various different derailleur systems. To check the rear hub has no play and is nice and smooth, you can spin the wheel and then grasp the frame and the wheel and try and rock it from back and forth inside the frame. If there's any movement, take it to a local bike shop to have them service the hub. So once we've finished all these checks, your bike should be in good working order for the ride. It's important to remember though, if you're in any doubt about anything, take it to your local bike shop and get them to check it out. There will be mechanics on site in the morning of the ride. I'll be there, and Keith from Herbert Cycles in Whitstable will also be there if you have any last minute adjustments. Thanks for watching.